Hi everyone, welcome back to the Lion's Den podcast. Today I have with me Ollie, who is the mental health officer this year. Ollie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ollie, as you know, and again, I'm the mental health officer and I live on Digby.
Great, that's brilliant. So you are in your third year, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Psychology?
Yes, psychology.
Nice. So how has Roehampton been for you? You know, what has your experience been like? Because obviously you would have been here before the pandemic as well. How's it been? What's your take on Roehampton?
Well, obviously it is really different. My first year was such a contrast to now, and to be honest, like even my second year as well, like for example, we had the strikes at the end of last year, my second year, and so it started to feel like gradually uni life was slipping away. But I think despite everything, I'm lucky because I'm a flat rep. I've met loads of really nice people. So it's not like I haven't carried on the uni life. We've just done it in a new way. But as for like lectures and stuff, it's been a bit challenging online. I haven't really enjoyed it so much. I really liked going to Whitelands and like speaking face to face with my lecturers. But I guess it's the best that we can do with the circumstances that we're in. So yeah, I mean, I do miss the old days, but I'm confident that, you know, it's looking a bit better at the moment. So
yeah, I agree. I think things are definitely looking on the up. But let's keep skeptical.
Yeah.
So obviously the pandemic, you know, it's really affected everyone's mental health. And as the mental health officer, I'm sure there are lots of things that you've been up to, perhaps behind the scene and also on the scenes that people may have missed. Would you like to talk a little bit about that? Like, what is your role and what do you do?
So my role is basically to give students that are struggling with mental health, or maybe not even struggling with mental health, but you know, might just need a bit of extra support in some way, a voice, and to create opportunities to help them in any way that they need, which obviously involves a lot of workshops and kind of talking to students and a lot of signposting actually to well-being and disabilities and SWOs as well. It covers a lot of stuff. Obviously everybody's different, everybody has different needs and different challenges, especially at the moment. So it has been quite busy, which has obviously been really nice for me, but it's sad that this year has been full of problems with you know, like the pressures of not being at home with family, not being able to see your friends. Like I've had to speak to a lot of people about this, just the challenges that are around at the moment and the lack of normality. Like I said, it's a nice opportunity for me to meet and speak to people, but it's obviously worrying that things have gone to that extreme. But yeah, just to answer your question, my role is basically, I suppose, just sharing mental health, sharing the ways that we can help each other. And I suppose the most important part for me is reducing the stigma around it. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, no, of course. I think it's a really important role, and there's loads of talks obviously across the university about, you know, reach out for wellbeing support, and that's absolutely true, and do reach out, and there are people here. But I think one thing that we can all appreciate as well is that support is not always available immediately, and that's just purely because of demand and staffing. But one thing you have done this year, which I think has been really great, is your coffee and mental health chats. I've been to a couple. They seem to get really good reception. It's normally just, you know, a handful of students and people come back. So it's a really good place to actually go and talk if you're struggling, particularly in that week or even that day. and you can just really be open. And it's obviously ran by you, Ollie, but also from a member of the wellbeing team who's obviously trained. So that's a really good way to get some sort of immediate help or advice or a bit of a break. And they can then signpost you on from there. But you can also just have a chat for an hour with other students that are struggling, and you quickly realize that everyone's in the same boat, which does in some ways make you feel better. I think that's really, really positive.
Yeah, totally. I don't want to say I've loved running it, because that sounds a bit mean, because obviously a lot of difficult stuff is brought up in them, but I have really enjoyed being a part of it, and I'm kind of sad that the year's coming to an end, because I'm going to miss it a lot. But I've just noticed that the difference when people kind of come into the Zoom session, you can just feel their spirits have lifted slightly by the end of it. And it's just kind of like that feeling of just talking. It sounds so simple, but just talking about it with like-minded people that might be going through similar things just makes such a huge difference. Especially, Aliata's amazing at what she does, and she creates such a positive, empathetic environment to just say literally anything you want without being judged. And to be honest, through helping other people in the sessions, I've really helped myself, which sounds a bit selfish, but I think that's true with everybody that attends. People come and help themselves, but they're helping others by sharing. So I think all round it's been a really successful thing to do, and I just hope that it carries on when my time as mental health officer ends.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that goes on nicely to a bit of background about yourself, I suppose, because obviously you don't just go into a role like this. You have to run a campaign, and you have to be elected, you have to make the decision to run in the first place, and all of these are difficult things. And in light with the elections coming up, there may be some students who are interested in these kind of things. What's been your personal experience of running for the role, getting the role, and all that jazz?
Well, I never even considered running in the elections, partly because I thought that I just would not get it. And I got nominated. I still don't know who nominated me, but whoever did, I just want to thank them, because it's definitely one of the best things I've ever done. And I kept doing the campaigning, and even during the question time during my speech, I kept thinking, no, like, seriously, why am I doing this? Like, no one wants me as their mental health officer. Like, you're just talking rubbish. And then I thought, hang on, like, I have just as much right to do this as anybody else. And I just think that the whole experience of running and campaigning and actually being a part-time officer, it's definitely just increased my passion for mental health in general and leadership and all of that. And I just know now it's kind of confirmed the career path I want to go into. And whether you're thinking about running for mental health officer, or I don't know, any other part-time role, or even sabbatical, I just think it's so important not to let doubt get in the way. I know it's a lot easier said than done, but I just think it's, even if you don't win, it's a huge achievement that you've actually gone for it. And you meet really interesting people along the way. So yeah, if you're thinking about running, please don't hesitate. It's such a good experience.
Yeah, I agree. And we're coming up to a year now, really, of being in these roles. And I think what we don't realise is actually the amount of personal development that comes with it, and how we progress as individuals, whether that's in our fields directly, you're studying psychology and counselling and you're doing the mental health role, or whether it's just me, for example, I do history, but I am the vice president for Digby. But there are so many skills you can gain from it. It's networking, it's career skills, it's being resilient, it's learning how to work in a larger team and to connect with staff and students, and to just put stuff together, it's events management, it's so many different things. And I think some people underestimate it because they say, well, you know, you're a volunteer, what are you actually getting out of it? And I think sometimes we overlook some of these things that we are getting out of it. I probably wouldn't have been able to do much of this in my first year. So actually it does really help. I think they're quite important for people.
Exactly. I kind of a taste of real life. Obviously, like you said, it's a volunteer role, but it's very close to a potential job that you'll get on the outside world. And I think, you know, given that Roehampton is such a small university, it's such a great university, but it can be quite like a bubble. So I think getting as much experience as you can in kind of working, even voluntary roles, it's just such a good way to get yourself prepared. And it just kind of gives you that drive to want things for yourself and want things for other people. And I think that I'm so much more confident to get a job now that I've had this role.
Yeah, exactly. And I think actually as well, in mind of Women in Mind, which is a campaign that we're running this month for women's mental health, but actually any mental health in general. I find it's helped me with mine, because there are always things to do. However, have you found that being a female in these roles, or just, you know, a female in general, do you find that has come with any setbacks for you? Have you ever experienced issues around this topic that, of course, only if you wouldn't mind sharing, it might help someone else perhaps to identify with that?
Yeah, of course. I think I've always been really, really lucky, actually, because the majority of my life I went to girls' schools, and so it wasn't like I was competing with a male or I was looked down on because we were all equal. But I think that I may have felt at some points, perhaps this is completely separate to my role, but I worked in a bar like my gap year, so like a couple of years ago now, and I was probably the youngest working there, and I was also the only female. And just, I did feel a little bit excluded, a bit isolated, and slightly looked down on. I may have, you know, misinterpreted that, but I think that's how I felt at the time, and that was quite important to me. But apart from that, I don't think so. And I know that Roehampton is so focused on equality, and so I've been so lucky in my role, and I've been so lucky with the people that I've had around me. They're so keen to help, no matter, you know, who you are or what you're doing. So yeah, I've been okay in that sense.
Yeah, I can definitely second you on that bar work. There's been many occasions where I go in and I'm like, oh, I'd like to be on the bar tonight since I'm a bartender, and it's like, oh, actually, can you waitress tonight? So I definitely know the feeling, but I suppose sometimes it's never direct, and it's never intentional, and I suppose that's where a lot of the issues come from. People aren't trying an attempt to be malicious, but it is this unconscious sort of bias going on.
Exactly.
Would you say that's affected you at university? Have you had any setbacks in terms of these kind of areas, or in your role in particular? Has there been any challenges this year? Of course, the pandemic, but, you know, above that.
Setbacks. Well, yeah, obviously the pandemic's been a huge nuisance, to say the least.
Yeah.
But I mean, no, I think one issue that I've faced for the majority of my life is that I am a female, obviously, but I'm a fairly small female, and I suppose I don't come across as incredibly intimidating. So I suppose kind of having a role, or, you know, not that I want to intimidate anybody. I suppose if I was, you know, like as a flat rep or something, if something's going wrong or somebody needs needs to stop doing something, obviously I'd reach out to security or something. But in the meantime, sometimes being taken seriously is a slight issue, because it's like, oh, you're so cute, and I'm like, yeah, okay, but like it is an issue. And I think I'm definitely not alone in that. I think when it comes to any role, people might look at you on the outside and think, what change is she gonna, or he, actually, it could be anybody, like what are they gonna do, because they've got that kind of perception of you already before even speaking to you. But like I said before, I think we're so lucky. I mean, I'm speaking for myself here, but I've been so lucky at the university because it's a very inclusive university and so much diversity throughout the colleges, throughout all the departments. So no, I mean, I think that I'm very grateful that that's the way it is here. And I just hope that it's the same in other universities and it's the same in jobs that I go on to. I'm sure it won't be all the time, but I feel like it's such a good place to start, in a place that's so supportive of everybody, if that made any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, no, it does. I think it's really important to raise awareness of actually that these issues that may not seem like issues can have an impact on women's mental health, in fact. And I wonder, what's the plan for you going forward? Do you have a plan for the future? And I suppose we are all breaking down these barriers by going into these roles in the future and taking on these kind of roles at university, which typically before wouldn't have been taken on by women. Now, I'm not talking last year, obviously, but we're looking a bit further back. What do you want to go into in the future? Do you know?
I do. I've got a very strong idea. I mean, it's weird to think about, actually, because during my A-levels, which was like a while ago now, I was so certain that I was going to be a dancer, or I was going to be some sort of performer. And I did psychology for an A-level, so it wasn't like I was brand new to it, but I did a gap year because I just needed to know. I just needed to like sort myself out and decide what my actual passion was. And while I absolutely love dance, I just knew that I needed to do something more with people. And obviously I've kept doing dance as a hobby on the side, and sometimes I get the urge to just go back to it. But I think I'm glad that I've gone into this, because now I can pursue my dream of being a therapist, and this role has just really confirmed that for me. It's like, no, you made the right decision, and it's definitely helped me network and meet people that are already in the role that I want to be in. And so being a therapist is the ultimate goal, and I just know that I want to specialize in anxiety and depression. And obviously it's such a huge world of like different types of therapy, but at the moment that's where my head's at.
Yeah, it sounds really good, and I'm with you on the dance thing. I was exactly the same. I did dance, and I was convinced that was it. In fact, I even did dance when I started uni, and then I changed because I did have this idea of wanting to work more with people, and wanting to do a bit more academia, obviously with history, because dance does include academia. I know that from my first couple of lectures. I was like, hold on, I don't remember doing this before. But yeah, I think it is a really positive thing when you have an idea of what exactly you want to go into. And I find that there's always this stigma around psychology. People always say, oh, don't bother going into psychology because there's too many people doing it at university and there isn't enough jobs. But actually, I think at the outcome of this pandemic, we're going to find that there will be a want and a need for more psychologists. Whether the jobs are made available or not, we don't know. But privately as well and charitable, it's definitely going to grow, and the demand will just get bigger. Unfortunately, it is sad, but yeah, I don't think people should be discouraged from it because of the stigma that kind of surrounds it, which I believe there is a stigma around it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember telling my granddad that I was going to be doing psychology at university, and he was like, is that a real subject? Yeah, and it's kind of an important one. Like,
yeah,
it's sometimes another stigma is that it's like, what is it? Is it philosophy or science? And I think it's the perfect combination of both. So I love it. And like you said, it's incredibly sad that psychology has this, like, oh, what can you do with it? You can do so many things with it. You can open literally so many doors. I'm just lucky that the course that I'm on, which is actually why I came to this university, is perfect for the area I want to go into. It's so specific. But I think psychology it's obviously, like, a degree is useful for your career, but I think you learn so much about yourself as well, and about people in general. And I've met so many people that have just inspired me on my course, and I'm sure everybody has that to some extent, but I do think that psychology attracts people that are interested in people, and if you're interested in people, it's going to be a supportive environment. So I just feel like that's been very beneficial for me. But totally, there's that stigma, and everybody that asks me now, what are you doing? What are you studying? What do you want to do? And I tell them, they're always like, you're never going to be out of work. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's terrible, but I can't stop smiling because I get to do what I really want to do. I really hope one day that, therapy is even more normalized, and people, sounds weird to say, but people kind of just do it like going to the GP. Like,
yeah,
I hope to get to that point.
No, it's absolutely. And I think one thing that's really come up often with this podcast is, do what you want to do, and don't get all tied up with these stigmas that surround it. I know with Danielle, it was women in sports. There's a stigma with that. With the Roe Cultural Society I spoke to, they were talking about all the stigmas that surround themselves being women from BAME backgrounds and being from a BAME background, regardless of your gender. And we've got episodes coming up as well on various different topics, trans and women in esports, even gaming with Jade, so that will be interesting. I think it all goes to show that we are, women are just as capable and able as anyone else, and we should be allowed to break into whatever fields we want, and we need to embrace exactly what we want to do. Raz was saying the same thing about when she was going to study drama. It was a bit like, are you sure? But after telling people exactly why you want to do it, and just demonstrating how passionate you are, no one can really stop you from doing that. So we just want to emphasize that to students, like, seriously, like, do what you want. If you want to email me because you want to come on the podcast and talk about something, do it, and we'll talk about it.
Sure.
So that's really important. I suppose, just off that then, do you have any advice for current students, future students, past students, and not even relation into anything in particular, just a bit of an advice from you of how to navigate your mental health, and how to reach out when you need help, and learn to manage it? Because I think there is a stigma that people who have mental health problems, they'll always have mental health problems and it's medication and stuff, but actually it can just be learning how to cope with who you are a lot of the time, and different personalities. Not everything that's considered a mental health problem, it's not a problem. It's not a problem with you. And recognizing that.
Yeah, definitely. The first thing that came to mind was actually kind of going on to A-levels, I suppose, if there are any A-level students thinking about coming to Roehampton, like, I can think back to my A levels because they weren't that long ago, really. And my first year at Roehampton, and I just remember thinking, why do I feel like this? Why do I feel so awful all the time? And it makes so much sense to me now, because obviously I'm studying this subject. I've had a lot of therapy, and I'm incredibly proud to say that, because it's, like I said, it's like brushing your teeth. You need to clean your brain ever so often. Like, I think that it's just an important thing that we all need to do. And I don't think there should be any shame in that. But for me, around my A-level time and around my first year, even kind of going into my second year, I kept thinking, I'm fed up of feeling like this all the time. And I kept telling myself over and over again, don't worry, you're gonna use this one day. And everything that you're feeling right now or going through, you're gonna make use of this. And obviously that doesn't just apply to people that want to be therapists. That could apply to anybody in whatever career they want to choose to go into. And now I can completely agree with that. I can say, yeah, I used that, and it took a while, and I'm still not completely there, but it was true. So I think what I just want to say is that if you're going through something now that just seems absolutely awful, and I'm sure it is absolutely awful for you, that there is a purpose. And while it's so unpleasant and probably feels like it's gone on for a million years, you're going to make use of that one day. It might be in 10 years, or it might be next week, but in some way you're going to look back and you're going to think, okay, I get that now. Yeah, unpleasant, but really useful. So I think that was probably one of the biggest things for me. And I think another thing is, I think people say this all the time, and it kind of annoys me, to be honest, but I feel like just do not care what people think of you. Again, it's so easy to say and so difficult to just do like that, but people are so worried about themselves and what other people think of them. So if you're thinking, well, I don't know if I should go for this role, I don't know if I should go for university, or I don't know if I should even, I don't know, go for this job in the future. If it's doubt that's stopping you, or you thinking, oh, people will think this of me, or they'll judge me, or whatever you're choosing to do, people if they do judge you, they're probably not worth your time anyway. But it's highly unlikely that they're going to, because they're so focused on themselves. So I think that's something that kind of kept me back when I was a lot younger, but now I feel like I'm getting out of that. So I think those two bits of advice would be my top two.
Yeah, I think to take you up on the first point, I remember one thing, hearing someone say to me, I can't remember who it was, but they said, oh, I believe everyone should have therapy. And I remember sort of looking at her and just thinking, well, that's
Yeah.
a bit weird. Why would everyone need therapy? But I
Yeah.
completely understand it now. It's so beneficial to people. And I think it's to emphasize that actually, like you said, sometimes you can just be feeling rubbish, and you don't necessarily have to have had a traumatic experience or to be currently experience something. Sometimes we do genuinely just feel down, and even then, that's a perfectly valid reason to reach out for help, and that help can be offered to you, especially at university. That I think we're really lucky that we can access this sort of care within our facility, because outside of it, it's really tough, and that's a whole other issue in itself. But whilst you're here, use it, and don't feel guilty that you may be taking that away from someone else who might seem to have worse problems. And these things aren't objective, they're subjective.
That was my mind. Literally just going to say that I think a huge thing that I've noticed this year is people saying to me, I feel rubbish, but I don't want to waste a therapist's time, or I don't want to waste going to see my SWO, or anything like that. And like, there is no such thing as a waste of time when it comes to talking to someone about how you're feeling. I know it can feel like that completely, and I've been there, I really have. But I think if you're feeling something, you have every right and you deserve to share that with someone. And the therapist is never going to think, oh, they're not bad enough to be here. Like, that would be awful.
Yeah.
They're always going to be thinking, this person is taking control of how they're feeling, and they've taken a huge step in coming here. You know, obviously I'm talking a lot about therapy here. People don't have to have therapy, but, you know, even if it's just talking to a friend, while that might seem like a burden, it's very often the opposite, because you could, without even knowing, be helping the other person too.
Exactly. And it's about getting out of that mindset. You know, there's always going to be someone that's worse off, you know, absolutely always. I recall saying it myself before, and I'm thinking, well, I don't feel like I have the right to feel bad, because I know there are children my age living in war-torn countries. And again, it's not about comparing experiences, it's about the individual experience and measuring that. And you know, sometimes you do have to be selfish and take things for yourself so that you can help with those wider issues, if that's what you would like to do. You know, you can't be a charitable worker and go out to certain places and help there if you're not capable in yourself. So and that translates to so many things, like your degree or turning up for a lecture. You know, you're not going to do it and get the best out of it if you're not feeling your best.
That's so true.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more, to be honest. And I think the final thing I'll say on that is that I like to think of it as kind of like, okay, if you're feeling a bit low or a bit anxious or whatever, and I know that this is quite prominent at the moment, considering we're in lockdown and people are kind of stuck, not being able to go anywhere, and they're very much stuck with their thoughts, or they're stuck with university work, whatever it might be. I'm guilty of this myself, but I know quite a few people have said to me, you know, like, I slept in this morning and I feel so guilty about it. And, you know, today I took some time off because I was feeling anxious. And the thing that I always want to say is, if you had a cold or you had the flu or anything, you were feeling physically unwell, unless you're some sort of superhuman, I'm guessing you'd take some time off, or sleep in a bit, or go back to bed, or treat yourself in some way. With mental health, it shouldn't be any different at all. It's, you know, it's taking care of yourself. It's not being weak or selfish or anything like that. It's, I think, in some ways, because obviously there's such a, I'm not going to go into it, but there's such a strong link between mental health and physical health. So by looking after your mental health, you're looking after your whole body as well. So it's not lazy, it's actually incredibly clever. It's you taking care of yourself and making sure that you don't burn out. I wish I listened to my own advice more, but yeah, I think that's another important point.
No, exactly. And it, you know, I appreciate for some people that it can be hard to take on board, and people might not agree, but that's why I think the sessions that you are running weekly with Alietta are really important, because you may be sort of on the fence of, well, I feel rubbish, but, you know, I know the wellbeing waiting list is long, and I don't want to wait, and I just want a bit of advice. It's a great place to go to. You can just go there, you can say what the issue is. Everyone within it is experiencing something that they would like to come and talk about, so everyone's in the same similar boats in that regard. And you have someone from the wellbeing team there as well as Ollie, so it's a really great place. Is there one this week, Ollie, or next week perhaps? When are they?
You know what, I think this week isn't on, but there is one the week after, and okay. I think they're every Thursday now. Every Thursday,
so there you go. And I think wasn't it 4 o'clock, maybe?
4 o'clock, yeah.
So 4 o'clock every Thursday, these sessions you can go to, and that way you can talk about it without maybe feeling bad that you're taking up time, or perhaps you don't want a 6-week counselling. You know, you just need a bit of advice then and there. Then it's your place to go. So thank you so much, Ollie, for this. And I'm going to put all the social media links in the bio. So I will put Ollie's profile, the wellbeing team also, and the podcast bio where you can find us if you have any questions and queries. So yeah, thank you, Ollie, for coming in and talking to us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's it for now. I will see you guys next time.